Hi, I'm Chris with CLP Studios.
Jim Grundy, Sisu Energy.
And I'm Dapper Dan with Dapper Dan's Barbershop.
Let's get right to business. I have a lot of topics. Let's have some fun. Shop Talk Plus, episode 4. We did a little kicker episode that was just State of the Union last time. The funny thing is, I was looking at some comments. We had all this crazy neon lighting, and somebody said, "What's up with the lighting? You guys look shady." When YouTube first hit, and you observed all the comments, I didn't. What kind of stuff were you hearing?
It's actually hard to see negative comments or people just trolling you and not reply.
It is difficult.
But you figure out once you go down these little rabbit holes, it doesn't lead to anywhere good, right? This person is so bored, they're looking at your content, they're looking at your video, they're hiding behind a moniker, and they're just trolling you, right? But we don't know who they are. So now, you told me back then to ignore it, and now I ignore it. I don't care what they say. It don't matter. Jerry Jones says, all press is good press. Doesn't matter.
That's an art in itself. Not paying attention to the comments, dropping the comment and moving on.
It's patience, man. You gotta have patience, right?
Because
it irks you. They're attacking your child, pretty much.
I'm so bored with my life that I'm gonna go look at random videos with a random company I know nothing about.
Energy you gotta have for that. Like, come on, dude. Are you that big of a loser that's what you do? You sit there. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous.
Need some vitamins or something, I don't know.
And that's perfect because at the end of the day, I will say, as a content creator, one of the biggest time sucks is actually posting on social media, which leads us to this topic. I'm gonna get right into it. You asked me for the topics, but you're a pro, big dog. And I missed you, right?
You guys are pro.
I missed you.
Yeah,
all right, so I'm gonna start with you because I already know Jim's gonna kill this, but time is money. When I say time is money, and the floor is yours, what comes to mind? Time is money.
Man, it's not wasting any time. It's just being productive and just pushing forward. You know what I'm saying? You can't sit there and lollygag, Jim? And when you think about that, what do you think, Chris?
Time is money. At first, as a business owner, I was desperate to fill my time. Now that the time's been filled, the structuring and the management of every 30-minute block is now ever important, down to the power of the word no no can be so negative, but it can be almost liberating and groundbreaking. Now, time is money, Jim, come on.
I would probably replace the word time with destination. Destination is money, right? We don't get paid until we get there, right? So how long does it take you to get to your destination? If we're just spinning our wheels, we look busy. We look like we're doing our job. But if you're not working on your processes, working the platform, it's kind of it's right. Time is money. Time equals money to an extent. But I can be busy all day. It doesn't mean I'm going to make money, right? It's only when I'm making progress towards our goal, to our destination, do we start seeing the fruits materialize a little bit.
Exactly.
So I will say I've ran into some luck over the past 2 months in acquiring new business. And one thing I find myself saying is, when we get these new clients, it's our job to create. So those first 2 dates with the client are the hardest. You're capturing as much as you can. You're trying to get all the smiling faces. You may be getting 10 interviews, but by the time you show up, set up, produce, deliver, and invoice, it's that clockwork. So even though it's a monthly client, it may take 45 days to 60 days to really get your thumbs on that client. And I'm sure, Jim, you run into that a lot with new clients, right? Balance.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the thing that we're always assessing is when we have a new customer that wants Sisu to do something for them, you kind of look at that time as money equation. Like, is it worth our time? And is the money worth the amount of time we have to expend to get there? If we have a new customer and they're eating up our resources, is time is money, or is it valuable time is money, right? Is it the destination is money? There's more to it. Sometimes more valuable than others. And when you have a limited number of resources, I think you really got to think about how you utilize time on what projects, how you're allocating yourself, spreading yourself because certain customers just are easier. They pay more. So why wouldn't you go do that?
Right. And then when you make a mistake, right, you repeat the same mistake twice.
So let's say you charge X for all your cuts. Somebody walks in and they want you to do braids on their hair. 3-hour project. At the same time though, you can do 6 cuts.
It's a good point.
It's the same time.
Yeah. Same time, exactly.
Same time. But the problem is the same. It's not the same money. There you go. But so you see my point though. So when people say time is money, there's more to that equation than time is money. I would say your time is valuable. So valuable time equals maximum money. That should be the.
So here's the big money question: is how do you value your time? How do you put a dollar amount on your time? You know, I find that difficult sometimes, Chris, because I sit there and I'm thinking, you know, I spend an hour on a ball fade, you know, and we're super competitive as it is. And I know that my competitors down the street are charging 20% more than what I'm charging, you know. And and the way I think, my time is valuable, but I don't know how to put a dollar amount on my time. So,
what I can say to that is when you run out of time is when you figure that out. When I first started my business, you know, when you gain that new client, you exchange cell phone numbers, and I would always call the brand new client and I would get my feelings hurt because they wouldn't answer, right? And then I'm like, man, I got 10 new clients, not one of them answers. But then I figured out, hey, these guys have to balance their every single move. Just like I do, they're out of time, so I don't get my feelings hurt when somebody, you know, I'll be honest with you, when I call Jim, in the beginning I used to get him now, but Jim never ghosts you. He'll hit you back, can I call you later? But one of the biggest, when you start your own business, when you're so desperate and hungry for that validation from the client,
I get that.
but so that was just, I don't know why that came to light.
Right? You're in a new relationship with the girl and you're hitting her up and she's not responding, you know, in a timely manner.
Although time is money in business, and as businessmen, you feel your time. Sometimes things happen in life that take you away from your profession and you have to be maybe with your baby at the hospital.
Yes.
So this guy, congratulations. Let's give the guy a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
surprise baby.
This is
He's
such a
home
humble
now.
man. You know, I called Dapper, he's like, man, I have to fill you in. This has been going down. You don't have to talk about your situation, but I love connecting with you. You always seem like every year, 2 years, you're just learning.
I am. I'm always learning as I go. And I was telling Jim, you know, we had a surprise baby. He came 2.5 months early. He's 2.5 pounds when he was born. You know, Chris, that was the most difficult thing, being in the NICU for 10 weeks. You know,
my granddad's birthday.
Daddy was. So as a business owner, a new dad, I had to learn how to juggle time. How do you balance family with business? And there's no right answer for that. It's really trial and error. And what I've learned is I just try not to repeat the same mistakes twice. You know, Chris, it really is. You know, Jim, I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know, back to 9 to 5, I really wouldn't. Yeah, you get hit, punches come left and right, Chris. But the freedom that we have as business owners you can't put a price tag on that.
All right, so jumping right over to gifts in professions. When I say that, what does that mean? Just when I say gifts in professions, what does that mean to you?
Are you talking about like physical gifts, or?
It could be maybe somebody has a gift of juggling time. It could be maybe you have a gift of streamlining process. Gifts in professions that propel you past your competitor.
Yeah. So one of the things when we hire somebody at Sisu, I don't care about your resume. The first thing you got to do when you come to the door, I'm looking for a gift, a trait. I'm looking for a glow, an energy, a vibe, something that I can connect with, right? You can have the best resume in the world, but at the end of the day, we're all dealing with people. This is a people business. And if you can't connect with somebody and you don't give someone the warm and fuzzies, same thing when you're walking into a dog kennel, right? And no, and all of a sudden you see that one dog, like it hits you. That's the one. That's what I want right there. Same thing with your staff. But within that, then once you identify their gift, once you identify what they can offer, then you have to kind of put them in the right lane, and because that's going to be their base. Their gift is their base. That's what they've got. Now you got to figure out how to employ them with pieces that build that up.
Yeah, and in that neat, Jim, I'm sure you come across it, Chris, you too, when you see a gift in someone and they don't necessarily see that.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool to see that when that transition and you're able to bring that to their attention? That, hey man, you got much more to offer. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. So
I will say a big break for me is, when we first met, you caught me at the tail end of my music video spree. I did 400 music videos in about 6 to 8 years. As I continue to put out content after content, one of my mentors came to me. He said, hey Chris, man, you're doing really awesome with the music video thing, but he said, I'm gonna be honest with you, you would kill it in corporate America. And it was just, he kind of saw that, oh yeah, this guy, he thinks he's successful because he's doing all these, these hood music videos. But you know what I thought was like this was really like this. So when I think gifts and professions, that's something that rings a bell. Let's get to, obviously this is a blog for the internet, for YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter content. So we've been through this, we've been through a crazy spree through Sisu Energy. Now the waters have calmed. We're way past the pandemic at this point. So I'm just gonna ask this straight up. At what moment have you ever figured social media to be extremely dangerous, divisive, and that can be on a positive or a negative spectrum?
Probably around Obama's first term, right? I think that feels right. About 12 years ago, 13 years ago, where you really, social media, it was out there, Twitter was out there, but it seemed like it took a political event to get everyone fired up. And then you started seeing opinions on news stations that are supposed to be impartial, but each time you watch one of them, you're getting a different narrative and different point of view. So then you go on a device like Twitter, and you're seeing just everything, all points of views, everybody firing everything, comments. You realize this thing is, you watch a program, then you're referencing, other avenues and learning more, and you're realizing, man, a lot of this stuff's slanted. And that's dangerous because some folks just watch CNN or Fox News or whatever, and they're only getting one side of the story. And I think you have to, I think we're in a period of misinformation. Almost it should be a crime. I know we have free speech and all that, but when you're disingenuous about your message to people on political events, or something feels wrong about that.
No. You're right. I do take references and leads from just when somebody offers something, I'm going to take interest. So as I'm talking to Jim, he says, you know what, you need to research Bloomberg Energy. And as soon as I researched Bloomberg Energy, the energy sector, I just saw that there's a lot of good information in there. And we'll talk about that next time. But Apple just released this new VR headset, right? It is a headset, but you can see through it. And it's supposed to integrate apps, and really? I want to talk about just how do y'all think, we're going into an AI world. We're going into a world where the Apple VR headset, how do you think it'll help or hurt? And maybe how can you see some uses of that, Jim?
I think back like this, man. I'm 42, same like you, Dap, but I didn't grow up with technology. I grew up in a creek on a baseball field, playing ball, right? So when we have these new technologies, I don't resonate with them. I don't really care. I think there's a responsibility though to it. We talked about social media already. It's getting more advanced. There's more access from kids. People can access your kids easier. I think there's a responsibility surrounding it, but I don't think anybody knows what it is yet, man. I don't know they know the depth. Just like I don't think they understood the depth of Twitter when it first came out, or any of these social media platforms. Like when Facebook was created, when Zuckerberg created Facebook, he didn't know it would do this, right? When we started Sisu, we didn't know it was going to do this. And so things have a tendency to, what you intend it to be and what becomes is usually different. So I don't know, I don't, there's a, There's some uncertainty to it, though. I can tell you that. Someone that's kind of resistant to, ironically, we're a technology-based company, but in my personal life, I try not to incorporate technology a whole lot. I'm kind of, I resist a lot. A lot of the new stuff out there. So I know I've got a 4 and a 5-year-old, 2 little boys, and they are addicted already to their little iPads. Devices. We've got to limit the amount of time they can look at those things because they'll get stuck on it. And it can be hours they're sitting there watching the same thing. It's just, I don't know.
Funny saying that. I'd like to add to that real quick, Chris. So I don't know if you guys know, but my 27-year-old son, Daniel Jr., is a barber here at Texas Harley. And when he was 3 years old, I messed up royally. I gave him a game controller at the age of 3. And let me tell you, it was like giving crack to a crackhead. I remember the frustration that he went through and just how he was so intrigued by the screen. Do you remember what game it was, Dave? It was Tarzan on PlayStation 1. And I remember I was going through these mixed emotions because I'm a gamer. I grew up as a gamer. And I was like, man, this is cool. I'm introducing this to my 3-year-old son. But then I was also thinking, man, but his reaction's not the reaction I was expecting, like he's like geeking out like, ah! And I'm like, man, maybe I did something wrong. But going back to what Jim said is our children are so addicted to these devices. So now with my newborn, I was telling my wife, I was like, I don't think we're gonna give him a device until maybe 5-6 years old. Like I'm serious, bro. And I've seen documentaries on Instagram with the Facebook developers, the guys that invented Instagram. They allow their children to have devices, and if they do, their time. So there's good and there's bad, and I can see good with the VR, but I can also see bad. And then in the way I think, I'm just thinking like, it's just another tracking system. And why does everything that we own in our home have to be Bluetooth connected? Like my toaster has no business having Bluetooth, but it has it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, it's crazy. It's just the way I think. But yeah, but good point back to what Jim was saying is that our youth, man, they're just addicted to technology, It's a two-edged sword.
Now, when I saw the VR headset, Meta or Facebook has one that's a lot cheaper. This one's retailing at $34.99, so $3,500. So it's getting crazy. But when you said tracking, right? Why does everything have to track? I think it's important to understand that this thing's getting your eyeballs, and like all your emotions are now getting downloaded into the system. Like, are we really coming to a time where, man? You've seen them apps that can replace faces, right? What's gonna happen when a face can be cloned on somebody? So a video catches somebody, but what happens when they clone the face?
Scary part, think of Minority Report with Tom Cruise. That movie was done 20 years ago, man, and it feels like that's where we're headed. You know what I'm saying? Technology is just insane right now.
What I would love about the Apple headset is I'm researching if it can do this one thing. I have probably 6 different workstations, and we have to log in here. I think it'd be awesome to have everything everywhere, but I don't think the technology is
like
there
Tony
yet.
Stark style?
I think so, man.
What's that called? What's Tony Stark's Jarvis?
Yeah.
A real Jarvis?
I think it'd be cool to just if I can leave this workstation here. Jim, the state of the union in the natural gas and oil industry. Come on.
Man, last time we met, I believe it was in December, early December, if I remember right. We were expecting the start of the year to be hot, and turns out that's not what happened, right? Supply chain problems. There was some global tension still, Ukraine, Russia. Fuel, there was a trucking shortage. There was all these problems going on that I don't think we realized were as big as they were until 23 started. So the start of the year was just, average. When we've been stuck average and just above average for probably the first 4 months of the year, but we're just now getting hot. When I'm saying hot, I'm talking like we're getting red hot. Like it's time of the year, weather's changing. We're expecting a monster June, all the way through probably November to mid-December.
That's great. That's great. So red hot, that's good. And that's why it's important for us to kind of gather here. You know, we're affiliates, you know, he's a barber, he's a client, he's a friend, he's a dad, we talk, but we really are meeting here. And honestly, what we shoot today, it's gonna expire within the next 30 days. That's how fast these times have changed. Inflation took over the world for the last year or two, okay? Ever since the elections. Rising prices, although they do suck, they are necessary. Talk about rising prices, the necessity of them, and just the cost of doing business right now, Jim.
If prices rise at a gradual, static pace, that's one thing. What we're in now, it's not hyperinflation, it's what they call stagflation. And that term is meaning that inflation is incrementally climbing at a clip and it doesn't appear to slow. And it's not slowing. I mean, around the world, we're way down the list on inflation around the world. But for what we expect, you know, a 2 to 3% increase, you know, being in the 8 to 9%, you hope to see it level off here soon and prices come back down. But the measures that it's going to take, and that's why you're seeing interest rates skyrocket. They're trying to curb it, but the last time this happened to this level was in 1978.
Wow.
I believe, and they brought the interest rates up to 15%.
Where are we at right now, as far as
Interest
inflation?
rates?
Or our inflation rate?
8 to 9%.
We're at 8 and 9% currently.
Yeah.
And the last time we've seen this was in
1978. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a guy named Volkers that ran the Treasury, and he's the one that controlled the interest rates. And he said we had to go up to 15%, and it wasn't until the 90s that problem in the late 70s was resolved. So it took that long. So this isn't a short-term fix. What we're in now is a period of stagflation where we're going to see, keep seeing problems. As long as you have disruptions globally, supply chain problems go globally, oil is used to make just about everything. You're seeing a lot of push and pull on that with a global event, Ukraine, Russia, potentially Taiwan's out there about to get involved. We don't know. But essentially when you have uncertainty, your prices are going to be uncertain as well. And that's what you're seeing. So to the level that we're seeing now, is it healthy? No. The reason why it's not healthy, you have folks on fixed incomes, right? They get used to a certain lifestyle. 48% of all Americans are getting government assistance of some kind. 48%. So when you think that these folks on fixed incomes or retirees that are budgeted prior to COVID to live on X, and now post-COVID, you're seeing rapid inflation, prices of goods, food, you name it. I think it's scary. I don't think we'll understand the long-term effects until probably another decade.
Does anyone know what the current minimum wage is currently?
I think $7.25.
What is it?
$7.20? Really?
I would have thought it was higher. I don't know.
I would have thought it'd been 10.
I think it's $8.25.
$10 range. Can we check that?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Wow. So 1992, when I started working at McDonald's, minimum wage was $5.25. $7.25. That's. I was with you. I thought it'd be.
But $7.25. I don't even know anybody who's taking $7.25 unless nobody's taking $7.25. I was thinking
service industry.
My first week.
Service industry.
Well, yeah, but you got tips.
And there's this place up in Colleyville. We're talking to a mom, and her daughter works there, and she's been a 20-year professional in her career, and said her 19-year-old daughter makes more than her waiting tables now than she does in her own career. I think the people that are hitting $7.25 are the folks that are not being paid hourly. It's your salary folks. That if you broke down like teachers, you break out their 14-hour days, dude, it's terrible.
Why are our teachers so underpaid?
And they just declined, the state of Texas just declined a pay raise.
They did?
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, education is everything. But with that being said, the importance of real life experience is priceless.
But you ask that question, and then you look at what did McDonald's just roll out a month ago?
What is it?
The first employeeless McDonald's. There's not an employee in the building.
I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm afraid that robots gonna take our job, but I think the stigma of people believing that robots gonna take our job and artificial intelligence are gonna take our jobs is way more dangerous than that. I mean, if you think about it, everybody I talk to, hey man, have you ever heard ChatGPT?
It seems far-fetched, right?
But it ain't just a 725. That's not your big cost driver. Insurance. Provide insurance for your staff. That's expensive. 401ks, those are expensive, right? You start looking at the ancillary costs. It's not just minimum wage. And then the answer is, well, then that's your responsibility as a business. Well, that's why you're seeing the prices of services go up, because it's all these ancillary costs that are, like insurance is skyrocketing right now.
You're right.
So people are having to raise their costs just to get paid for their employees. And it's not even a good deal. I mean, it's really not. 401k, not that great of a deal. But yeah, I mean, I don't think 725 comes into play for anybody hourly. I think that actually is a measuring stick for probably your salaried folks.
Man, and I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
So, what I really was, I don't want to say surprised, is the Permian Basin, the biggest shale play in the globe. I was amazed that as I researched OPEC and, the most powerful energy people in the world are getting together, how big of an emphasis there was on West Texas. And, being a kid from Texas, you don't really understand the magnitude. So tell me the magnitude of the Permian Basin just in our industry.
When you understand, like when we talk about we're drilling, most folks think of when we're drilling, we're all drilling to the same depth. Maybe it's a mile into the ground. When you go 2-3 miles further into the shale, the reserves are unlimited.
Oh, really?
Right? And the other misnomer about oil and gas is they think, well, that's a finite resource. That's also not true. Now there's understanding that the earth is making oil, constantly replenishing what we're taking out of the ground.
Insane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a lot of the stuff we didn't understand, but West Texas and that geographic area, which is massive, right? It's bigger than some countries. You go in New Mexico to West Texas to even parts of the Panhandle into Kansas and southern Colorado. It's massive. It's a huge play. Opportunities is limitless. Our biggest constraint right now is government. Government restricts us from touching public land.
We should never be worried that there's not enough. So for somebody that knows nothing about the industry, so what's the conflict, Jim?
Because not all oil is the same, right? So what we're pulling out of our ground is not the same what's coming out of Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And so when they go to refineries, this is a crude product. When it goes to refineries, they're making different products. And they haven't built a refinery since the 70s. 1970s, the last refinery built. They're really old refineries. They only make one product, maybe two products. So you're talking about distillates, gasoline, different gasolines, oil, different types of oils. Stuff to be used in products. It's all made from different refineries around the world, so we have to import and export. What OPEC doesn't want is they don't want the U.S. OPEC wants to control the oil gauge and keep it at $80+ a barrel. When the U.S. throws their oil on the market, that drops their price. So they have to adjust on their side because those are state-owned agencies, right? Those countries control the output of that product. And the U.S. doesn't control anything, right? It's owned by individual companies, and their job is to make profits. So capitalism doesn't work in an OPEC environment, which is a very socialistic type approach to energy production. We don't see eye to eye on that. So that's why you never hear about the U.S. Being invited into OPEC or OPEC Plus. Why wouldn't we be? We have more reserves than anywhere in the world. Because they know at the end of the day, what controls the U.S. oil production is capitalism. And who controls capitalism? Individual companies. They can't control individual companies.
So I just learned something from Jim just right now, because when I'm in a conversation with a mechanic, I'm told by mechanics oil's oil. But you're saying oil isn't oil.
No.
So obviously, who has the most refined oil in all of the world? Would it be the Middle East? Or would it be
They have
us?
the easiest oil, the
They have
cheapest oil.
the cheapest oil?
So they're shallow wells, vertical wells. Here in the U.S., right now we're on this shale play. That's a hot thing where you hear about fracking, where we go down and then we go out like that. So from
That's
one well,
fracking?
that's fracking.
Once it goes horizontal?
Once it goes horizontal, then they run these explosives down this iron tube, and they blow up rock, which fractures the rock, fracking, and then they blow sand, which is what we deliver, into those rocks to let the oil fall out of the rock. We're not talking about little rocks. We're talking about massive, huge boulders. When you fracture them, oil is trapped in them, it starts pouring out.
So we get the trimmers, occasional trimmers, in certain parts of Texas.
So that was really relevant 10 years ago. In 2012 to 14, you saw, especially Oklahoma, all kinds of trimmers, and they traced that back to all the wastewater that they were getting from fracturing. They were disposing, injecting into the ground. That was a problem. They don't do that anymore. You know, Texas, if you look at it on a map, if you look at it from a tectonic plate map, Texas isn't on one nice, pretty plate. 100. There's 100 little tiny moving scales that we all live on, and it's constantly shifting, and that's why you have pier and beam services and foundation services are really prominent here in Texas. The ground's always moving.
Last question, how does that affect our fresh water?
Fracking?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't affect
It doesn't,
at all.
okay.
That's all misinformation. We
Okay.
talked about media earlier, right? We talked about fracking is hitting the water table. No, we're way below the water table, right? And all that cemented, encased in, that's not happening.
Okay. That's
Go
nice.
ask, I mean, look, go to Flint, Michigan, ask about how their water's doing. There's no fracking going on up there. And their
Interesting.
water's trash.
Wow.
So,
All right, so we're getting on some pretty heavy topics, and I'm looking forward to filming maybe another month and a half. But let's go ahead and bring it on in. I want to talk about effort. Okay, so we're here because of a conversation. We're here because we want to be. But what brought the Shop Talk Plus idea was, as me and Jim were discussing, he's like, hey man, we should just sit back at a barber shop and just kind of chat it up like LeBron James does on the shop. So I just want to talk about effort, and I want to ask you, why is it important to see tasks through?
It's extremely important to see tasks through, because not only should you do it for yourself, but the others that are depending on you to see those tasks through. It's critical, because if I get lackadaisical in any sense of the word and I drop the ball somewhere, it's a ripple effect, right? And it affects the others around me, it affects my team, and then it's gonna put me in a position to where now I'm gonna dig myself a hole. So effort, and as a business owner, you don't have room for error, Chris, you really don't, because then you have no one else to blame but yourself.
All right, Jim, why is it important to seek tasks through, ideas through?
yeah, it's like when you're building the structure of any home, building, whatever. You miss the small details down the road, it's gonna come back and get you, right? Building's gonna fall apart, something's gonna happen. But when you initially asked that question, for whatever reason, my mind went to my staff. Well, when they come to me, because I'm in the position now of guiding, coaching, developing from behind. So I let them take charge. They want to go down, this rabbit hole or take on that task or go on a new project. I might know it's a waste of time. And I'm paying for that waste of time. I'm paying for their time with my money. But I know long-term it's more important for that person to go through that exercise, because they're going to learn what doesn't work. And so when they come back to our platform, they understand why we have what we have. They got something to weigh it against. Like, now I understand why we do this, because this way doesn't work. And so you're constantly having to, it's trial and error. You gotta let people go through that. If we didn't let trial and error happen, it goes back into AI, then bring me a robot. I'll just program to do what I want it to do, and we're good. And we have those features in our company. We have things in our company that replace people that we could really invest into. But, and we've been approached by third-party companies like, hey, let us come bring IT solutions to you that eliminate people. But I think when you do that, you also eliminate culture.
When it comes to effort, you know, me and Jim, we spoke about this, and I thought it was really important to execute getting here. And it's a big deal that we're here on episode number 4. And like I said, we don't have to be here, right? But we're here. I think it's important that, you know, we're seeing the task through. So before we shut it down, on episode number 2, Dappa, who's a main sneakerhead, he hit us up with some, you know, I learned some things that day.
Awesome.
You know, down the line, you know, what size shoe do you wear, Jim?
13.
So Jim wears 13, and ever since I had some buddies see me on the episode 2, and he's like, you know what, man? I'm a sneakerhead too, I gotcha. So I got this little clip that I put on social media that he gave me some retro Jordans, and it was pretty cool. So we're gonna have to bless Jim with some. When I talked about, you know what, I'm not gonna bring those to the show unless I have a pair for Jim, my wife said, Jim ain't gonna wear that crap. I said, what are you talking about? Okay, so Jim, you will wear a right type of sneaker, correct? If it matched?
He spoke about it before.
Man, I don't know. I've played basketball in 20 years. I mean, I used to wear them, right? But it was for, I wasn't out kicking them with pants or any of that. It's just.
But we're gonna get him.
We'll get him laced up.
Okay, so I got a task for you.
Hey, the Travis Scott.
Yeah, you would wear those?
Those were clean.
There we go.
There's several.
How much are we talking?
Those have actually dropped in price a little bit. It's crazy because shoes like a stock. So shoes released by Nike pretty much at a base price. It's anywhere from $180 to $220, and then once that shoe drops, gentlemen, sometimes they skyrocket.
So it's like a concert ticket. It's like a concert ticket.
And exactly, it just depends which Kardashian wore it that week, what rapper is flexing with that shoe.
Okay.
And other shoes, sometimes they skyrocket and then they drop just like a stock. So
I got a task for you.
Okay.
Let's find Mr. Jim
I mean,
a pair of 13s. No, 13s. Hey, I got one request.
Okay.
Send me the bill, just keep it under $4.99, please.
Hey.
You got it.
Hey, but I'm one khaki short away from rocking white New Balance.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
We're close.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We're getting real close.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So just a clean shoe. And then I'll cash app you.
I'll take
13.
the tag.
Okay,
But,
13.
Yes.
but my favorite shoe, honestly, growing up was the Adidas Shell Toe.
The shell toe, yeah, it's a great shoe.
Yeah.
The solid white or the black?
Solid whites with black stripes.
Okay.
With gray stripes. I had all different color stripes. But I was Adidas
Classic
guy
shoe.
growing up. Yeah.
Classic shoe. You can't go wrong with
All
the
right,
shell toe.
so what you got for us, man?
So
I'm
today,
excited.
I brought something pretty special. As you all know, there's a movie out right now called Air, and it's not a movie necessarily based on Michael Jordan, it's based on the shoe. So right before the movie Air, to release a very classic shoe. It's a retro one, and they call it the Lost and Found. And if you can see, Nike did a really good job with distressing the box. It makes it look like it's been sitting on the shelf since 1985. It's got a price tag there from the 80s. It's distressed. It looks like you could just blow the dust right off of it. So without further ado.
You know what? Last time you hit me up with a green monster. No, we're not doing that again. But Jim, I want you to sit here. I want Jim to sit
Jim's
there.
reaction.
I want you to look at these.
When I handed y'all both that shoe, y'all were just like speechless. Like, what is this?
You know what? But that's amazing. When I paid a visit to a client, he asked me, he's like, dude, what were those shoes? So I was glad it was well received on social media.
Yeah, and I knew I brought those for the wow factor, you know. So without further ado, this right here, gentlemen, is the Retro One Lost and Found. And if you can see, Nike went out of their way and even put like the sales receipt from 1985. Check that out, Jim.
Oh, that's pretty
Can
cool.
you tell people what the price was in 85? Does it say on there? I think like a
$44.99.
$44.99, Chris.
What's that says?
40. Voila! Look at that. You can't go wrong with this silhouette. This is the Retro One.
Put a page
This is
right
the
on top of it.
colorway.
That's the one they were designing on.
This is the colorway, the Chicago colorway that they released in '85. Chris, check that out. if you look underneath, so it's called the Lost and Found. If you turn it upside down, look, Nike went as far as putting a little dust on there. So it makes it look like it's just been sitting on the shelf, been collecting dust. You can't go wrong with this silhouette shoe. The colorway, anything with Chicago colorway does quite well.
Okay.
It does. For some reason, this shoe skyrocketed to about $450, and it's recently dropped. I think today it's about $280, $300. But at one point it was at $450.
Yeah, they dropped for $100.
So, looking at this shoe, Jim, I mean, what do you think? It's super 80s, it's retro.
Yeah.
Something that you probably would have worn as a kid. Did you ever wear?
No.
What did you wear on the court?
Converse.
Do you remember the player?
The new Converse, not the old school Chuck Taylors, but the ones that they
Like
rolled
the J.R. Ryder Converse?
Yeah, white and blue.
Okay.
They had the plastic Converse circle emblem.
And they were pretty high top.
They were high top, yeah.
We looked that shoe up the other day, Chris, the shoe that he's talking about. I believe if you have that shoe still in the box from the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, later.
I think that shoe's going for about $1,200. Somebody fact check me on that. So yeah, retro Converse.
The outside of the shoe was made of like leather on the basketball. It had like this weathered leather feeling to it.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they came in several colors.
Yeah.
They did.
Sweet.
But hats off to Nike for the effort that they put in the shoe.
Next week we're going to talk about Ariat boot.
Yeah, we talked about some
You
Ariats.
got some boots.
Hey, when I wear cowboy boots, my go-to is Twisted X, and I've got some Laredos that I absolutely love. So, but what I love about shoes, gentlemen, is when I see an old retro shoe, it reminds me of my childhood. It takes me back to being a kid, because I remember growing up. You know, these shoes were $100 back in the day, and I remember asking my mom, "Mom, can I have a pair of Michael Jordan?" That $100 was a big deal. And now as a grown man, I can have all these that I want. You know, it's unfortunate. Some of these, when they drop, they skyrocket. They go up to $500, $600, $700, you know? But we can afford it, you know?
Yes, sir.
And so it's like a smell. It's like a song. When you smell a certain smell, or you hear a certain song, it takes you back to that day and time. Same thing with the sneaker. So it's just fun. It's a cool hobby.
Okay, so let's do this. We'll reconvene in another month and a half. We'll present him, and then the episode after that, we have to come suited and booted.
Suited and booted?
I'm not gonna lie.
That's a great idea.
Wrong. They're gonna be nothing custom on me.
Maybe like a bolo tie.
Hey, does Cole's blazer
Maybe
qualify as something clean?
As long as it's fly.
I mean, some turquoise.
Okay, so we're gonna swag it out next week, right?
Okay.
Next episode, and then we're gonna come suited and booted, and that may be the episode that we get on the golf course, and you guys teach me how to cut cigars.
I would love to teach you how to cut a
I
cigar.
appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chris.
Dan.
Always a pleasure.
Mr. Jim.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
Chris Lavario, Skillp Studios, signing out.
Jim Grundy, Sisu Energy.
And Dapper Dan's.
Appreciate y'all tuning in to Shop Talk Plus. We're out of here. Let's wrap. We still getting a haircut?